Welcome, all of you. I'm glad you're here. So I'm Dr. Robin. I'm a family physician, and I teach everything from really little kids through medical school. I started my own I started medical school 25 years ago now. It's been a long time. I did family medicine. I worked for someone else, and then I had my own practice for 7 years, and I started a free clinic, and I did a lot of advocacy work and all sorts of fun stuff. Then we had COVID. You guys are all old enough to remember that. I had I had this choice of like, do I want to focus my energy on my kids or my patients? And I chose my kids, obviously. And that's how I discovered I love teaching. Like I didn't know that because I'd never tried it, but I started teaching just so I could be home with my kids. And it was like, I was like, oh, this is way more fun. I need to be doing this now. So I actually decided to be a doctor when I was 6. Most people change their mind over time as they learn more about themselves and about the career. In my case, I was 6 years old. My family life was complicated. I had a lot of stuff going on. I went to the doctor's office, and here was the doctor who there were like two things that appealed to me. One is she knew what was going on in my family, and she could have helped me and didn't do a great job. But I saw the potential. I was like, if I become a doctor, I'll know what's happening in people's families and I can help them. But the other thing is like she had a career. She wasn't dependent on someone else. She could get out of bad situations if she needed to. She worked in an office that was clean and where life was pretty like predictable and respectable and like the things I wanted. So I kind of looked at both sides of that. Everyone just told me like you love science and you're really smart, you should be a doctor. And I did love it. And it was a great fit, but it was not the best fit. I grew up in a family without a lot of money. My mom actually got her college degree after I did. And so we didn't really know how this went. And so my first plan was community college and then a state school that had literally never gotten anyone into medical school before. And my high school chemistry teacher was like, oh, that isn't going to work. And so she took me to visit her university that she went to. And it was so completely different from my own life. It was a private university, and it was a beautiful campus. And it was just I was like, what did I just walk into? And it was only 7 miles from my home, but it's still like a completely different world. And I got enough scholarships there to go for free, which was really cool. And yeah, it was an amazing experience. And I got into medical school. I was painfully shy, you guys. I couldn't have done this back. Like now you can see I'm very comfortable. I would shake so hard if I had to talk in front of a group that you couldn't understand me. And so part of what college did for me is it helped me gain a lot of confidence and get good at speaking in front of a group and really feel like I really came into myself more. And that's part of what happens as you develop. So if you aren't there yet, don't worry. I wasn't. I want a life like that and I want to help people like that. And so that's when I decided to become a doctor. At first, I wanted to be a pediatrician because I wanted to help kids. But then I realized that my hands were tied. And so realizing that for good or for bad, parents have a huge influence on their kids. And that's why I went into family medicine, knowing that helping a parent is going to help the kids. And I'd get to take care of the kids too, which I like kids better than grown-ups generally. So that worked out really well. But that's kind of where family medicine came in. I was planning on opening my own practice already. And all through residency, I did a lot of like learning about the business of medicine. And every time I was in a practice, I would arrange to spend at least an hour or two, but sometimes like a half day or a whole day with the office manager to learn how businesses were run, because I didn't have any background in that. But it was just something I kind of knew might happen in my life. And then the practice I was in was fabulous in many ways, but it was still really frustrating to get things done. And so I just said, like, could we have this thing for kids? Because I saw more kids than anyone else in the practice. And so it was a need that I saw. And they said, sure, you could come to our meeting that's at 5 in the morning on your day off and present it to the owners, and then we will consider it. And I was like, so you're one of the owners, and I'm presenting it to you while I'm here with you. Could this count? Like, could you just like talk amongst yourselves and like it's a $6 item, which was cheaper than the grown-up one actually. Um, and it was just so frustrating that like, yeah, I was pregnant and I had a little kid. I would have to come in at 5 a.m. on my day off to present this idea to help my patients, and they could choose not to. And I was like, that's bonkers. Like, it shouldn't be this complicated. You know, everyone's different. But for me, it drove me a little bit crazy. So I was already planning on having my own practice. And then when I was on maternity leave with my younger child, I had like this huge fight with my husband, and I said, like, I can't go back to work and like cheat people of their money and not help the people I want to help and abandon my two children. I was like, I just can't do this. And he was like, well, now's a good time to open your practice. And I was like, no, I just had a baby. This is not a good time to open my own practice. And he's like, you're on maternity leave. You can do it now. And I'm like, no, I'm on maternity leave because I just had a baby. Like, no, this is not. So I ended up putting together my practice on maternity leave. It was very, very small. It's called a micro practice when it's just me, no staff. And then I had my strokes. I couldn't even drive to my old job. I couldn't work for more than an hour without taking a nap. Like it completely changed my life. And so I quit. I quit my old job and I threw everything into my new practice. And so that's how I switched over a little bit sooner than I intended to. But honestly, it gave me the guts to do it. And within a month, I was in the black, meaning I was making money. I didn't make a ton of money at first because, like I said, I could only work for about an hour and then I had to sleep. But it gave me that flexibility, right? I could schedule my time around my own health needs and around doing physical therapy as I recovered from my strokes and, being able to do what I needed to do while I was recovering. And then I built it up from there. And eventually we were doing just fine. So my last 7 years, my practice was focused on adults who had significant childhood trauma and were trying to set up a better family for their own family. So I took care of the entire family unit and helped parents learn how to parent and learn how to care for their kids, but also how to care for themselves. And then because these kind of childhood experiences lead to a lot more medical problems. We know it's a huge risk factor for medical problems. Most of them had a lot of medical problems like asthma, autoimmune diseases, these kind of things that people get when they have a lot of trauma. And so I was dealing with complex medical situations, a lot of neurodiversity, and then helping with the family being able to function well as a unit. So it was really rewarding. And then COVID happened, and I was like, well, I could take care of my patients or I could take care of my kids. And I mean, it's kind of possible to do both, but not really when you're a solo doctor and you're the person they're all turning to. So I contacted a friend of mine. I was like, do you know anyone who wants a practice? Because I'll sell it really cheap. And this was in March of 2020. She hooked me with Jen. I sold it on March 30th of 2020. We had met once. We'd talked on the phone for a while. So she's actually, I think, as of next year, will have owned it as long as I did. But yeah, that was kind of my path into owning my own practice. For becoming a doctor, you need to know a lot of math, a lot of science, but you also need to like learn a lot of other soft skills, people call them, but they're like really important soft skills. Talking to people, being able to be comfortable with people who are all different from each other, not just people who are similar to you. A lot of it is not what you think. People talk about like needing a certain personality or whatever. The main thing is you have to be willing to work a lot. You have to be willing to put your life on hold for a long time because there is a lot of education. But also know, like, there's a lot of life. Like, from where you are, 11 years of education, which is what I have after high school, seems like a really long time. But then you realize you're going to be working till you're like 70 something. Like, 11 years is not a big deal when you think about all those years, right? But part of it's looking at your own priorities. To think about the lifestyle you want, because there are other careers that would have been a better fit for the lifestyle I wanted, and I didn't really think about that.
What are some reasons someone should not become a doctor?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay. Well, one's the lifestyle I mentioned to you. Like if you want to be able to like have a really flexible lifestyle, take time off for like a long time and not come back to a bunch of people, not have people counting on you. You can't just take off. If you don't love studying all the time, you don't want to be a doctor. So, college for 4 years, medical school for 4 years. At the end of medical school, you're just like a doctor. You're not a specific kind of doctor. So in the United States, you have to have a residency and become a specific kind of doctor. I became a family physician. Residency is where people actually used to be a resident at the hospital. And you kind of might as well be because I worked. So the current work hour restrictions is you can't work any more than 30 hours in a shift, and you can't work more than 120 hours in a week, which there's only 168 hours in a week, you guys, just to put this in perspective. And you can't work more than an average of 80 hours a week, averaged over 4 weeks. It's a lot of hours. So you get a lot of practice and you learn a lot during that time, but about your specific thing. So in medical school, everyone kind of, through third year of medical school, you all learn kind of the same stuff because all doctors need the same knowledge. Fourth year, you start focusing more on stuff you're going to need. So fourth year, I took like a 2 week EKG rotation where I just learned how to read EKGs. So that's the heart tracings. I took a 2 week breastfeeding location or rotation just to learn about breastfeeding because I was going to have to help with that. I took a lot of pediatrics, a lot of family medicine. I took an extra rural rotation. So I did just a lot of stuff like that in order to go into family medicine. I think another thing would be like if bad things happen, like people die regularly. Um, Medications don't work. You put your heart and soul into something and people don't get better. You make recommendations and people don't follow them. So if you're someone who feels like you need to have control, you're not going to have control. And you have to be willing to let go of that and know that you don't run the world and that you can't make people change and that you know, they're going to do what they're going to do. And that's not a natural thing for most people who go into medicine. Most people who go into medicine want to change the world, which means going out and changing it, right? So that's another part of not necessarily don't go into medicine, but like if you can't cope with the fact that people were going to die and people are going to not do what you say and people are going to make bad decisions and you can't help that, then go into something where it doesn't affect you, you know? All the time when I was a kid, they said, well, you love science and you like helping people, you should be a doctor. Which, like, yes, that's one option. But you guys may have noticed there's lots of ways of helping people that involve science. And so you can help people and never once see the inside of a body if that's something you don't want to be a part of. So, yeah, there's lots of things you can do. Or, like I said, do something completely unrelated. It's totally cool. As a nurse, you're not stuck in one thing the way doctors are. So, that's if you like that flexibility too, that's very cool. Really research what's out there because the reality is every single thing that happens is somebody's job, right? And like just in healthcare, for example, it's not just doctors, obviously, but like every step of the way. So if you go in and you get an x-ray, someone has to check you in, someone has to do the x-ray, someone has to read the x-ray, someone has to manage all those medical records, someone has to make the machines work, someone has to invent the machines, right? So just to have that one thing done, you need engineers, you need techs, you need people who are able to do repairs. So there's a lot of hospitals just hire people whose job is to keep the machines working, right? So there's all these jobs people don't even think about that exist and are so important. There is a job to do literally everything that needs to be done. And so if someone's needing something done, there's someone doing it. And so remembering that every single field has that kind of thing. First of all, don't just apply online ever. Always call people. Even at your level, if you're getting a job, if you just apply online, you're not going to get it generally, and you haven't actually checked it out. You're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, right? And you want to get a sense for the culture and the people. Very busy, popular practice. Lots of doctors work there. Well, they work you like insane. And like I saw all these doctors just like, oh, hi, back at the computer, and they had stacks of work all around them. And I was like, oh, I don't want that life. So you have to like physically go there and see what life is like. Or if there, for some reason, you absolutely can't do that, talk to people who work there and ask them about it um, before you ever apply. And then if you like them and they like you, see if they can vouch for you, right? Do lots of networking, lots of connecting with people. So setting those boundaries of like getting in writing and ahead of time exactly what you're going to have to do and what you're going to get paid. And if you have to work overtime, if you get paid for overtime, what you don't get paid for. And so finding all that out, getting it in writing. And then if they try to change it on you, be like, no, I didn't sign up for that. And they're going to say, well, you're not a team player. You're letting everyone down. You didn't sign up for that. That's not your problem. That's not your job. Always, 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 you guys, whatever career you're interested in, make sure you actually go kind of try it out and see if it's a good fit and if you like it. So that could be volunteering, that could be shadowing. Um, I really think doing like a an internship program or a like actually working there in some capacity type program. So like for medical people, um, being a scribe is a really common way to do this because you're right there in the exam room with the doctor and you're taking notes for the doctor. And so you get to really understand what they're doing and kind of be a part of it without having to have the training. So before you decide for sure what your career is, whether that's engineering or medicine, you want to try it out and see if you actually like that life. So that's really important. Beyond that, if you want to go into medicine, the most important thing is not to bulk up your resume with exactly the same thing as everyone else has. It's to have a story arc. And I say this as someone who taught medical school and was on the admissions committee and also got into medical school my first try. You want to have something that makes you different than everyone else because everyone who's going to medical school is really smart, has great grades, has great test scores, and those help for sure. But even within that, you have so many people in that category. The way that you make sure that you get in and get into a good school, um, is by being different than everybody else. Because a lot of people all do the same thing. So for any of you, whatever career you want, if you want to have a strong application, find something that you care about. And this doesn't have to be a permanent thing, but something that you can develop kind of a story arc. Do you care deeply about children, about old people, about puppies, about diabetes? And then try to do things around that. And it doesn't have to be medical, but you want to show that you can stick with something for a long time because medical school is a very long time and that shows leadership. So you're not just showing up and like carrying stuff around, you're like doing something and that you are passionate about it and you can like throw yourself into things. The things people do are totally random. For me, my theme was kids. I did living history, dressed up in costume. I know how to cook over an open fire. I not just cook, bake. I can make cakes. I can make pies. I can milk a cow. I can shear sheep by hand, not with like modern clippers, but with scissors. I can spin. I can weave. I can drive a draft team. I taught in a one-room school for several years at a living history event. And I developed some programs for teaching kids how to be historical interpreters so that kids could do an accurate job of portraying people from 100 years ago. So that was one of the things I did. Like, that has nothing to do with medicine, right? But it showed that I stuck with the same thing for many years. And I took leadership roles and I saw things that needed to change and I changed them myself. But you want to have plenty of stuff, whatever it is that you do, right? It could be volunteer work, jobs. I worked in a used bookstore through high school. I did a ton of babysitting through high school and college. I worked at in the archive special collections of my school library. Like none of that was medical, right? But I got stellar recommendations, especially from the archive special collections. And so that showed again that like I was trustworthy as a leader and as a responsible person. So you want to show your character more than your knowledge. Obviously, you have to be smart, but everyone's smart. So you want to show what is it about your character that's important. And you want to be memorable, which is where doing weird things helps. Because if it's like a million people who all did the same thing, they're not going to remember who you were. But if you did something kind of kooky and different, but still taking the opportunities that make you different and show your character, show your abilities beyond just being smart. Each step of the way, you have to get to the next step. And this is kind of true for whatever you guys want to do, is right now, you don't need to worry about where you're going to be in 20 years. You need to worry about how to get to the next step. And so in high school, you're trying to get into college, right? And you're trying to get into a college that lets you do what you want to do, which again, have guts and ask. I like called one of the owners and I was like, hey, I loved being there as a student. Are you guys hiring? I would love to work there. Nope, we're not hiring. 2 weeks later, so would you be interested in an interview? And I ended up working there for 3 years. They were wonderful, which is the most important thing, you guys. When you choose a career, don't go for what you could do. What I could do and what's right for me are not necessarily the same thing. Like you could be whatever. No, 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 no. It's not what you could do. It's what's right for you because we're all different, right?